The cage in the shadows, the war was over, but the silence was not peaceful. Sergeant Ray Walker stepped carefully through the burned alien lab. His boots crunched over broken glass and metal pieces. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of chemicals. He kept his rifle ready, just in case. Even though the enemy had lost, something still didn't feel right. The lights in the lab flickered above him. Everything was broken or burned. This place had once belonged to the Zelari, an alien species that had tried to wipe out humanity. But now it was just ruins. Ray was part of a cleanup team, checking for tech or traps left behind. He turned a corner and entered a dark hallway. It was too quiet. No sounds of machines, no voices, just the soft hum of energy from somewhere deep inside. Then he heard it, a soft sound. Like a whisper, he froze. "Help me." Ray blinked. He wasn't sure if he had imagined it. He slowly moved forward, rifle raised, heartbeat quick. The hallway led to a sealed door, half open. Something was glowing inside, soft blue light. Ray stepped through the door, and what he saw made him lower his weapon. There was a cage in the center of the room. Not metal, but made of some kind of energy field. Inside it sat a small girl. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and shining, and strange marks ran along her arms. She looked no older than 10. She wasn't fully human, but she wasn't fully alien either. She looked at Ray with wide eyes, not scared, not angry, just tired. "Are you going to hurt me?" she asked in a soft voice. Ray took a slow breath. "No," he said gently. "What are you doing in there?" "I've been here a long time," she whispered. "They said I was broken." Ray looked around the room. There were old computers, broken screens, and data pads scattered on the floor. He walked up to one and tapped it. It sparked, but still worked. The screen showed files, test logs, experiments, something called Project Eden. He scrolled through the data, reading words like hybrid, weapon, subject to emotional. He looked back at the girl. "You were part of their experiments," he said quietly. She nodded, her eyes filled with something close to sadness. "They wanted to make something better than human or Zelari," she said, "but I cried too much, so they locked me away." Ray felt a chill run down his spine. She was just a child, a mix of two worlds. Born in a lab, treated like a tool. He looked at the control panel beside the cage. It was old, but he could try to shut it down. "Do you want to come with me?" he asked. The girl's eyes lit up, but she didn't move. "You're not afraid of me?" she asked. Ray shook his head. "I've seen worse than a scared kid," he said with a half smile. The girl slowly stood up inside the cage. Her voice shook as she spoke again. Can I call you Dad?" Ray froze. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. He had lost his own daughter years ago, before the war. Before everything, for a moment, he saw her face in this strange girl. Different eyes, different skin, but the same pain, the same hope. He looked at her and nodded. "Yes," he said softly. "Yes, you can." Ray moved to the console and began working. Wires sparked, screens flickered, and finally the cage buzzed and shut down. The girl stepped out slowly, like she didn't believe it was real. But before they could leave, something changed. The lights in the room turned red. An alarm blared loud and angry. Ray grabbed his rifle, pulling the girl behind him. A robotic voice echoed through the walls. "Unauthorized release detected. Lockdown." Initiated from the hallway behind them, metal doors slammed shut, and then, in the shadows, something moved. Mechanical legs, glowing eyes, and a deep buzzing sound. They weren't alone anymore. Asterisk, the hallway shook as the alarm echoed through the walls. Red lights flashed across broken glass and old machines. Ray held the girl's hand tightly as they ran through the shadows. She followed without question, her small legs moving fast behind them. Metal spiders crawled from the walls, glowing eyes scanning. arms sharp like blades. "Don't look back," Ray said. His voice low but firm. The girl nodded, her face pale but calm. She didn't scream, didn't panic, just kept running beside him. That scared Ray more than the machines. What kind of child was this? Quiet in danger? Trained to survive? They reached a broken lift shaft, and Ray pushed the girl through the open doors. "No power," he muttered. He looked up, saw an old emergency ladder. "We climb," he said. She didn't ask questions, just grabbed the first rung. Ray followed, close behind, hearing metal echo behind them. The hunters were coming. They climbed 3 floors before Ray forced open a hatch. They entered a dark room filled with broken crates and strange glowing jars. Old storage bay. He pulled the girl inside and slammed the hatch shut behind them. For a moment, there was silence. Ray leaned against the wall, breathing hard. The girl stood in the middle of the room, looking at the glowing jars. "What's your name?" Ray asked finally. She looked at him, her voice soft. "I don't remember." He frowned. "They didn't give you one?" "They called me Subject 17, she said, "but I didn't like it." Ray sighed, wiping sweat from his brow. "Then we'll find you a real name later." He said, "Something normal, something human." She gave him a small smile. "I'd like that." Ray turned on his wrist, come to call for help, but there was no signal. Just static. "We're being jammed," he muttered. Of course. He looked around the room for anything useful. Old tech, scraps of armor, a broken service robot in the corner. Ray walked toward it, shaking his head. "Worthless," he said. Suddenly, the girl stepped forward. "Can I try?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "It's broken, kid." She crouched next to it, placing her small hands on the shell of the robot. Her fingers glowed faintly, soft blue light running through the circuits. The machine sparked, clicked, and its eyes lit up. Ray jumped back. The robot stood, humming quietly, fully powered. "What the hell?" Ray whispered. The girl looked up at him, her eyes glowing too, just for a second. "I just helped it remember how to work," she said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Ray stared at her, speechless. No human could do that. No. Alien either. Not the Zelari. Not like this. She was something new. "You can control machines?" He asked. "Not control," she said. "I feel them. I talk to them." Ray sat down slowly, trying to understand. "Project Eden," he whispered. Now it made sense. A hybrid girl with both alien mind and human soul, built for something. More than war, but locked away because she didn't act like a weapon. "You fixed that robot with just a touch," he said. "Do you even know how you do it?" She shook her head. "No, it just happens." Ray stood up, walking to the far side of the room. He looked at an old terminal and pointed to it. "Can you fix this too?" She nodded and placed her hand on it. The terminal lit up screens, flickering to life. Ray smiled, impressed and disturbed at the same time. The terminal showed a map of the base. There was another exit, 1 floor below them, in the cargo. Tunnels, but it was guarded, of course. Drones, turrets, maybe even more experiments. He stared at the screen, thinking, "Looks like we've got one way out," he said, suddenly. The robot beside them beeped and spoke in a deep voice. Warning. Danger approaching from above. Ray looked at the ceiling. Scratching sounds echoed from the shaft they had climbed. "They found us," he said. "No more hiding." He grabbed his rifle and looked at the girl. She was calm again, eyes focused, hands glowing slightly. He didn't know what she was, child, alien, savior, or threat, but she had saved his life twice now, and that meant something. "You still want to come with me?" he asked. She nodded without fear. "I trust you," she said. "Even if you don't trust me yet?" Ray gave her a small nod. "Let's get out of here," as they moved toward the door. The girl paused. She looked at him and asked again, softly, "If I help you get out?" Will I still be allowed to call you Dad? Ray looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. Just a little. You already are, he said, behind them. Metal claws scraped closer. But ahead of them, a new path was opening, and she wasn't just a child in a cage anymore. She was something more, something powerful, and she was on his side now. The underground cargo tunnel was cold and dark. Rusty pipes lined the walls, leaking steam into the stale air. Ray held his rifle close as they moved. The girl walked beside him, her steps silent, her glowing eyes watching everything behind them. The echoes of metal claws still followed, never fast, but never stopping. Ray's breath formed small clouds in the air. The deeper they went, the more it felt like the place itself was watching. The walls were covered in marks, scratch lines, alien symbols, handprints. Old ones faded with time. Others were trapped here. Ray muttered, more to himself than to her. The girl touched one of the handprints, her face thoughtful. I remember this place, she whispered. Ray turned toward her, surprised. You said you didn't remember anything. Only pieces, she said. But this hallway feels sad. He wanted to say it was just a hallway, but he didn't, because he felt it too. They passed a large metal door, half open. Inside was a broken lab filled with smashed tanks and dried blood. Ray stepped inside carefully, scanning the room. The girl stayed by the door, watching silently. There were names on the wall, carved in by hand. Subject 12. Subject 13. Failure. One name was circled in red, scratched over and over again. Eden. Ray shivered. This wasn't just a lab. It was a prison. A place where they built weapons and then feared what they made. He opened a cabinet and found old files sealed in plastic. He scanned them quickly, his face growing darker with every page. Project Eden was shut down after Subject 17 refused orders. He read aloud, emotion unstable, unpredictable behavior, marked for disposal. He looked at the girl. She was still staring into the dark. Subject 17, he said quietly. That's you, isn't it? She didn't answer, but her hands trembled slightly. I wasn't what they wanted me to be, she said softly. They said I smiled too much, asked too many questions. Ray's jaw tightened. She wasn't a failure. They were. A loud clank echoed from the tunnel. Ray grabbed the files and signaled her to move. They left the lab, walking faster now. Ahead, the map showed a security door. If they could get through it, they could reach the hangar. But as they approached, something strange happened. The lights flickered, not red this time, but green. The girl stopped walking and grabbed Ray's arm. Something's coming, she whispered. From the shadows ahead, figures appeared, humanoid but wrong. Their skin was pale, their eyes empty. Faces twisted like masks. They didn't walk. They floated like smoke wrapped in flesh. Ray raised his rifle. What the hell are those? The girl looked terrified for the first time. They're not alive, she whispered. They're the ghosts. Ghosts. Ray asked, not understanding. They were like me, she said, before they broke. The creatures didn't speak, didn't scream. They just reached out with long, cold fingers. Ray fired bullets passed through their bodies like mist. They're not dying, he shouted. The girl stepped forward slowly, her eyes glowing brighter. She placed her hand on the wall beside her. The entire tunnel shook, light surged through the floor. The creatures stopped, twitching, frozen in place. She closed her eyes. And the lights pulsed again. And then, one by one, the ghosts faded away, gone. Like smoke blown away by wind, Ray stared at her. Stunned. What did you do? I remembered, she said quietly. They taught me how to shut them off, in case I ever turned into one. Ray didn't speak for a long moment. Then he placed his hand on her shoulder. You're not like them, he said. You saved me again. She looked up at him, her voice small. But I could be. No, he said firmly. Because you care, and that's what makes you human. The girl gave a small smile, and they kept moving. The security door was ahead, sealed tight, but the girl didn't need keys. She placed her hand on the panel and the door slid open. Behind it was the hangar, dark, but filled with broken ships and hidden exits. Ray stepped inside, scanning for danger. But they weren't alone. From above, a drone hovered down, small, silent, and watching. It projected a hologram of a cold, older face. A woman with white hair and sharp eyes. Sergeant Ray Walker, she said. You are in possession of classified property. Ray raised his weapon. She's not property. He growled. She's a child. The woman smiled coldly. She's a weapon, Sergeant, and she belongs to us. Ray took a step in front of the girl. Then you'll have to come through me. The hologram flickered, and more drones flew in from above. The girl grabbed Ray's hand and whispered, I can shut them down, but it will hurt. Ray looked at her. Do it, he said, and her eyes began to glow once more. The girl's hands lit with a strange, bright glow. The drones around them sparked in midair, twisting and dropping like dead birds. One by one, their lights faded, their wings shut down, and the hangar fell silent. Ray lowered his rifle slowly, staring at the broken machines on the floor. The girl's body wobbled, her legs weak. He caught her just in time before she collapsed. You okay? He asked, his voice soft but firm. She nodded faintly, her voice like a whisper. I didn't shut them off. I asked them to sleep. Ray didn't know what that meant. But he knew this. She wasn't just a science project. She was alive. And she was hurting. He carried her toward an old storage chamber near the edge of the hangar. Inside, it was dark and quiet, filled with dust and forgotten equipment. He laid her down gently and scanned the area for any medical kits. That's when he heard the sound soft coughing, coming from behind a pile of crates. Ray raised his weapon again. Show yourself, he said. A voice replied, shaky and weak. No need to shoot, soldier. From the shadows, an old man appeared. He wore a tattered lab coat, his face tired and pale. One of his arms was cybernetic, but half of it sparked and hung uselessly. Ray kept his finger on the trigger. Who are you? The old man raised his hands. Dr. Vorn Hale, he said. I was lead engineer on Project Eden. The girl stirred at the sound. Her eyes opened, and she sat up slowly. You were one of the voices, she said, her tone flat. Dr. Hale gave a sad nod. Yes, child, I helped create you. Ray stepped between them. You created her. He asked, you locked her in a cage? Dr. Hale looked ashamed. I did worse, he said. I helped design the whole project, a hybrid built from Zolari genes and enhanced human DNA. We didn't just want a weapon. We wanted the future. Ray's voice turned sharp. You built a child, then threw her away when she showed feelings. She wasn't supposed to feel, the doctor replied, his eyes filled with regret. But then she smiled at me one day, asked me why stars shine, and I knew we had done something wrong. The girl stared at him. You told them I was broken. Dr. Hale looked down. I told them you were too human. I wanted to protect you. But they said we couldn't afford mistakes. I tried to fake your deletion. From the records, but they found out. Ray lowered his weapon slightly. What happened to the others? There were 17 before her, the doctor said. Most didn't survive past the first week. She was the only one who lived, who learned, who dreamed. The girl stood up now, her legs steadier. Why did they hurt me? She asked. I just wanted to talk, to learn, to be good. Dr. Hale's eyes filled with tears because they were afraid of what they didn't understand. You weren't a weapon to me. You were hope. Ray turned to the girl. You okay? She looked at him and nodded. I don't remember everything, but I remember enough. I wasn't just locked away, she said quietly. I was erased, suddenly. The hangar lights flickered again. Dr. Hale checked a panel on the wall and frowned. They've activated the failsafe, he said. Self-destruct to make sure no one leaves with her. Ray cursed under his breath. How long? 10 minutes, the doctor said. But we have a ship old, but functional. Hidden behind the cargo doors, Ray looked at the girl. We're getting out of here, he said. All of us. Dr. Hale shook his head. I'll help. You launch, but I can't leave. My ID is the only thing keeping the hangar door open. When you're gone, I'll close it from here. The girl stepped forward. But you said you wanted to protect me. He smiled gently. And now, I finally can. Ray didn't like it, but there wasn't time to argue. They raced toward the cargo ship Dusty, old but still holding together. Ray powered up the systems while the girl sat quietly, staring. Out the window at the stars, she whispered, I don't feel like a monster anymore. You're not, Ray said without hesitation. You're just a kid who deserves to live. The engines roared to life as they lifted off. The hangar doors began to shut behind them. Dr. Hale gave a final salute through the screen. Then the signal cut outside. The base vanished in a ball of light. The girl closed her eyes, one tear falling. I hope he finds peace, she said. Ray nodded. So do I. And ahead of them, the stars waited. So did more danger and more secrets. But for now, she was free, and she wasn't alone anymore. The stars moved slowly across the cockpit window. Ray sat in the pilot's chair, hands steady on the controls. The hum of the engine was rough but working. They were flying, not fast. It's not far yet, but they were free. Behind him, the girl sat. Curled up on a blanket near a small screen, she watched the glowing stars like they were alive. It was her first time seeing space through a window. Her first time seeing anything without bars between her and the world. Ray glanced back at her. She looked calm, but he knew her mind was full of thoughts. So was his. The AI inside the ship crackled to life. Warning: hull integrity at 63%. Oxygen at 74%. Long-range communication offline. Yeah, I know, Ray muttered. It wasn't a rescue ship. It was a broken cargo freighter, the only thing left in the hangar. But it would fly, and that was enough. For now, the girl stood up and walked to him slowly. Her steps were quiet. Almost too quiet. Where are we going? She asked. Out of their reach, Ray said. They'll be hunting us. She nodded, not scared, just certain. I can feel them searching, she whispered. Their angry eye escaped Ray. Frowned. You can feel them. How? She touched her head lightly. I hear signals, like whispers in machines. It's not words, it's feelings, fear, control, danger. Ray leaned back in his seat. Those scientists had no idea what they created, he said. You're not just smart, you're connected. I don't want to be connected, she said quietly. I just want to be someone. Ray looked at her for a moment. He reached into a small locker and pulled out an old necklace. It had a silver dog tag on it, scratched and worn. This belonged to my daughter, he said. She was about your age when I lost her. The girl stared at the tag, eyes soft. What happened to her? War happened, Ray said, his voice heavy. The first attack, I wasn't home. The girl stepped closer and held the tag gently. She would have been brave, she said. I'm sorry you lost her. Ray nodded. I see a lot of her in you, he said. Not because of how you look, but because of how you care. She smiled small, quiet, real. Then the console beeped sharply. Ray turned fast, checking the alert energy spike. He said, something's powering up near us. The girl moved to the window and stared out. In the distance, a ship appeared, dark and sleek. No lights, no signal. They found us. She whispered. Ray pulled the controls, trying to change course. The old ship groaned. Resisting the turn, suddenly, the girl grabbed the console, her eyes glowing. "I can block their sensors," she said, "but it'll drain me." "No," Ray said quickly. "You've done enough, but I want to help," she replied. "I don't want to run forever." Ray stared at her, not a child anymore, not just a project. She was choosing to protect him. "Again, do it," he said. "Just be careful." Her hands touched the console, and the ship trembled. Screens flickered. Systems blinked, and for a second, everything went black. Then the radar cleared. The enemy ship was gone. Ray checked the systems in shock. "They can't see us anymore," he said. You scrambled their eyes. The girl sat back, her face pale, energy fading. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. "I'll be okay," she whispered. "I just need sleep." Ray knelt beside her and placed the necklace in her hand. "You earned this," he said. "You're not a number anymore." She smiled weakly. "Then what's my name?" Ray thought for a moment. Then he said, "How about Nova? It means new star." The girl opened her eyes and smiled. "I like that. Then it's yours." Ray said, "Nova." She looked out the window again. "We're not safe yet, are we?" "No," Ray said. "But we're not alone either." Suddenly, the ship jolted. A proximity alert screamed through the speakers. Ray jumped to the controls, checking the scanners. "It's a minefield," he said. "We're heading straight into it." Nova pulled herself up, hands on the glass. "There's a pattern," she said quickly. "They move like they're alive." Ray trusted her. "Tell me when to turn," he said. "I'll follow your lead." Her eyes focused, scanning every blinking light ahead. "Left," she said. "Now up. Slow. Right again." Ray followed. Each command, his hands sweating on the controls. The mines moved, just slightly, like they were reacting to them. Nova whispered softly, almost like singing, and the mines backed away. Ray blinked. "They're listening to you. They remember me," she said. "They think I'm one of the creators." The last mine floated aside, and the ship slipped through the field unharmed. Ray let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "That was impossible," he said. Nova just smiled. "I think we're just getting started." And somewhere deep in space, a new signal began to search for them. Not from Earth, not from the Zelari, but from something far older. Something that remembered Project Eden and wanted it back. Asterisk, the planet below was silent and gray, thick. Clouds swirled across the sky like smoke trapped in slow motion. Ray tightened his grip on the ship's controls as he guided the freighter toward the surface. Nova stood beside him, staring at the screen, her hands clutching the old dog tag he had given her. "Why this planet?" she asked softly. Ray glanced at her emergency outpost. He said, "If we land there, I can call an old friend, someone I trust." Nova nodded, but something inside her felt cold. She couldn't explain it. But something about this place whispered danger. Not from the planet, but from someone waiting on it. The ship shook as they broke through the clouds. Mountains below rose like the teeth of an ancient beast. In a valley between two ridges sat a small human base, half covered in dust. It looked abandoned, but it wasn't. "Stay close to me," Ray said, placing a hand on Nova's shoulder. "We'll be safe if we're quick." They landed beside the base and stepped into the wind. Nova wrapped herself in a jacket too big for her, and Ray kept his rifle ready. The doors to the outpost opened with a creak, revealing a dim corridor lined with flickering lights. They walked inside, and someone was already waiting, a man in heavy armor stood in the hallway. His face was hidden behind a helmet, but the voice that came from it was sharp and cold. "Sergeant Walker," he said. "You're a hard man to find." Ray raised his hand slowly. "Captain Mace," he said. "You used to be human, remember?" The helmet lifted slightly, revealing hard eyes and a scarred face. "You're transporting illegal biotech," Mace said, pointing at Nova. "She's wanted by command." "She's a child," Ray replied, voice steady. "She's under my protection now." Mace shook his head. "You stole classified property." Nova stepped behind Ray, eyes wide. "They're going to put me back in the cage, aren't they?" she whispered. Ray didn't answer, but she already knew this wasn't rescue. It was a trap. Mace motioned, and 4 soldiers stepped out of the shadows, weapons ready. Ray looked at each of them, his old squad, the ones he had fought beside. Now pointing guns at him, one of the soldiers hesitated. "Sir, with all due respect." "She looks like a kid." "She's not a kid," Mace growled. "She's a threat." Nova stepped forward slowly. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she said, "but I won't go back." Ray stood beside her. "She's more human than most of us," he said. "If you can't see that, then I don't know what we're fighting for anymore." Mace raised his gun. "Last chance, Walker." Ray didn't move. Nova closed her eyes. And the lights in the hallway began to flicker. The air changed heavier. Colder, a low hum started to rise, vibrating through the walls. Mace aimed at her head. Nova opened her eyes, and they were glowing silver now. Not blue, not human, not Solari. Something new. A wave of force exploded from her body. The walls cracked, lights shattered, and the soldiers were thrown backward like toys. Mace crashed into a pillar, groaning in pain. Nova dropped to her knees, breathing hard. "I didn't want to," she said, "but I won't let them take me." Ray rushed to her side and pulled her close. "It's okay," he said. "You did what you had to." Footsteps echoed again. One soldier was still standing, the one who had hesitated. He looked at Nova, then at Ray. "I didn't sign up for this," he said quietly. Then he turned and walked away, leaving them alone. Ray lifted Nova into his arms. "We need to move," he said. "They'll send more." They ran deeper into the base, through old tunnels and broken doors, until they found a hidden hangar. Inside was a scout ship, small, fast, perfect for a quick escape. Nova rested in the corner, weak but alert. She looked at Ray and whispered, "I lost control." "You didn't," Ray replied. "You chose to fight back." She looked down at her glowing hands. "I'm changing," she said, more and more each time. Ray didn't know what to say. He could see it, her power growing, her mind shifting. Still her, but something ancient waking up inside her. He started the ship and lifted off. Behind them, the base went dark. Far above, the stars were watching again. Nova stared into them. "Do you think I'll stay like this?" she asked. "Or will I become something else?" Ray looked at her. "You'll become what you choose to be," he said, "and I'll be with you no matter what, but far away in the cold silence between galaxies." Something had noticed her, something old and not human. It remembered Project Eden, and it had just begun to wake up. The scout ship floated in silence between the stars. Ray sat in the pilot's seat. Hands resting on the controls, Nova lay curled in a blanket near the window. Eyes open but quiet. They hadn't spoken in a while. But not because of anger. Some silences are heavy because they mean something. Outside, space looked peaceful. But Ray knew peace never lasted long. They were running again, and he didn't even know from who anymore. Nova's powers were growing. She was no longer just the girl from the cage. She was stronger, faster, and sometimes even distant, like her mind was hearing something Ray couldn't hear. He looked back at her. "How are you feeling?" he asked. She blinked slowly, then sat up. "Different," she said, "like I'm still me. But also not." Ray stood and walked to her side. "I know it's scary," he said, "but you've come this far." Nova looked up at him. "Back on that planet," she said, "when they pointed guns at me. I didn't feel scared. I felt calm." Ray nodded. You protected yourself. She shook her head. No, that wasn't me. Not really. Something else took over. Something older. Ray didn't understand everything, but he saw the fear in her eyes. Not fear of enemies, but of herself. Before he could respond, the ship shook violently. Alarms blared. Screens flickered red. Impact alert. The AI announced, unknown. Gravitational force detected. Nova stood, holding the edge of the console. There's something out there, she said, her voice low. Something calling me. Ray looked at the radar. Nothing visible. No ship, no signal. But the pull was real. The stars outside twisted like glass. And suddenly, a massive structure appeared. A station, ancient and floating in the dark. It wasn't built by humans or Zalari. It looked grown, like metal. Had evolved into bone, the ship was no longer in Ray's control. It was being pulled in, slowly but gently, like being invited. Nova whispered, "They know me." The ship docked with a soft hiss. Ray readied his weapon, but Nova stepped forward. Calmly. "I have to go inside," she said. "They won't hurt us." Ray hesitated. "Nova." "You don't know what's in there." "I think I do," she said, and her eyes were glowing again. Not bright, but warm, they stepped into the station, inside. There was no gravity, yet they floated without effort. The walls pulsed with soft, cup blue light, like veins under skin. Voices filled the air, not words, but emotions, memories, sadness, longing, hope. Nova reached out and touched the wall. And the lights responded, forming shapes, glowing images. Children like her, hundreds of them, floating in tanks, sleeping forever. Ray's breath caught in his throat. "These were the originals," he said. "The ones before you." Nova nodded. "They weren't failures," she said. "They were seeds." From the floor, a figure rose, not alive. Not dead. A memory in metal, shaped like a woman with silver skin and empty eyes. "You are the last," the figure said to Nova. "You carry our final code, the fusion of creation and choice." Ray stepped in front of Nova. "What do you want from her?" he demanded. The figure looked at him without blinking. "We want nothing," it said. "We only watch." "She is not ours now. She has chosen her path." Nova stepped forward. "Then why did you call me?" "To show you who you were." The voice said, "And to ask who you want to be?" The walls shifted again. Showing her past, the cage, the fear, the tears. Then they showed her future, hundreds of stars and others like her waking, not weapons. But protectors, not tools, but daughters and sons. Ray placed his hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to be any of that," he said. "You're already enough." Nova looked at the images, then back at Ray. "I want to help them," she said. "But I don't want to lose who I am." "You won't," he said, "because who you are is my daughter." Her eyes filled with tears. "Even if I change." He smiled gently. Even then, the station began to fade, not explode, not vanish, just sleep. The light dimmed as the ship was gently pushed away. Back on board, Ray sat beside Nova as the stars returned to their quiet dance. She held the necklace close, and her voice trembled as she asked, "Can I still call you Dad?" Ray didn't hesitate. "You never stopped," he said. "You never had to ask." Nova leaned on his shoulder, and for the first time since the cage, she closed her eyes and felt safe. Far away, a signal reached Earth. Project Eden, deactivated. Subject, lost, but they were wrong. She wasn't lost. She was finally found. Asterisk.